अब चेक करें। हाँ
तो इसमें हमें 8 बनने हैं हम, और हमने एक वो ये सोचना चाह रहे हैं
सर वॉइस नहीं आ रही सर। सर
हेलो जी
सर वॉइस नहीं आ रही।
वॉइस किसकी नहीं है?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Can you listen to me?
Yes, I can hear you. We are just waiting for the guests to arrive, then we'll start. If you have any issues, please write in the chat and I will try to sort it out.
अच्छा
Walaikum Assalam.
और yes
Assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम सलाम।
ठीक है। इसके ऊपर तो सिंपल यही बोलेंगे ना कि मतलब ना होने के बराबर ही होती है यार। ठीक हो गया। ठीक हो गया। अच्छा यूएमटी का ना एक इसके अंदर वो भी आता है कि यूएमटी का एक बंदा बड़ा मशहूर है जो बॉक्सर है, उसको ये लोग अपने सोशल मीडिया पे बहुत वो करते हैं। देन हमारे यहाँ पे एक बंदा है वो कोच है फुटबॉल का, वो भी बाहर से आया हुआ है। हाँ नजर आते हैं जब इन लोगों ने अपनी कोई भी कैंपेन चलानी होती है तो जिसके अंदर कोई स्पोर्ट्स का कोई भी इन्होंने टच देना हो तो उन लोगों को जरूर प्रमोट करें।
Actually, few of the people I see, they are not able to open up their mics. I think it was a problem with the setting. Kindly please rejoin the webinar and that mic problem will be sorted. Otherwise, it will ask you to connect with a phone call and it will not work. So if you wanted to connect with a computer mic, then you might need to have to leave the webinar and again so that it may work.
Mr. Noman Arshad, can hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
हेलो नोमान
Yes,
साहब मेरी
yes.
आवाज आ रही?
Yes, Dr. Amreen, I can hear you.
ओके ठीक है, थैंक यू।
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम। नोमान साहब मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, Dr. Saab. Dr. Abid Saab, I can hear you. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome everyone. So let me check if the guests are here. Dr. Abid is I think here, and Dr. Osma Hanif is here.
Yes, I'm quite here.
He is confirming. Yes. Dr. Ghulam Samad. Dr. Ghulam Samad, I think not here. And Dr. Mohammad Saeed Chaudhary.
Hello, can you hear me please?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Welcome, welcome, sir. Let me set it up, and then we're going to start.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ji, assalamu alaikum everyone. So I'm going to officially start. So let's start today's session. I officially welcome you to this webinar managed by Department of Economics, and the theme of the webinar is on COVID-19 and its Pakistan economy. How Pakistan economy is affected by the apparent pandemic. So in this seminar, Department of Economics welcome all of the guests and the honorable guests in the meeting. So before start, I will start with the Tilawat of Holy Quran. So let's start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل والله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So before starting, I would like Dr. Fizur Rahman to give opening remarks, and then I will introduce. Then we'll start our proceeding of this webinar. Dr. Fizur Rahman, kindly start the opening remarks for this webinar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
I am thankful to the administration of UMT for providing us an opportunity, particularly to the Department of Economics, to conduct a webinar on COVID-19 and Pakistan economy. As one of the prime institutions of Pakistan, UMT administration has encouraged all the schools and departments to address the issues related to COVID-19. The Department of Economics has started a series of webinars, COVID-19 and Pakistan economy. It is our second webinar related to this topic. Yesterday we had, the first one, and today the second one. I welcome all the respectable audience and chief guests and the other participants and guest speakers that they have spared their valuable time to participate in this seminar. The main objective is just to bring up the various issues and their solutions so that it may become a guideline for Pakistan economy. I really appreciate your time and effort, and let's start with this, message that we, all Pakistani people, are ready to fight against COVID-19. And as a result, we will be, inshallah, with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will be, quite successful in overcoming its impact on Pakistan economy. This is the important, message from all the institutions, that all the institutions of Pakistan are, standing together just to help the government of Pakistan and government of Punjab to overcome the issues and the, impact of COVID-19 on Pakistan economy. Thank you very much from my side, and let's start.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to introduce our guest of honors. So in today's session, we have 4 honorable guests. First of them are Dr. Abid Q. Salehri. He is a member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council and is an executive member of Sustainable Development Policy Institute, which is known as SDPI. The second is Dr. Muhammad Saeed Chaudhry. He is a Director of Economic Division, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Pakistan. Third is Dr. Ghulam Samad. He is a Director of Center for Environmental Economics and Climate Change. And lastly, Dr. Uzma Hanif. She is an Assistant Professor from former Christian College University. I would like to welcome you from the Department of Economics and UMT. First of all, I will invite Dr. Abid Q. Salehri to give your remarks regarding the webinar topic. So kindly come on board. Dr. Abid.
Can I share the screen, please, if you make me the host?
Yes, let me allow you. Wait a minute. Let me see. Okay. Yes, you can share the screen now. I have allowed.
Thank you. Yes, so is it there, the screen?
Your video is coming up. I think your share screen is not coming up right now. Yes, it's coming. Thank you.
Got it. Well, thank you very much, Noman Rashid Sahab. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear students. It's indeed an honor
to be with you and to share my thoughts on how this pandemic is affecting economy of Pakistan. What I'm trying to do, of course, we have already, you must be familiar of quite a few impacts. I'll try to take a slightly futuristic approach, and I'll try to touch upon the forthcoming budget for the year 2021, which will be presented in June. So I'll just give you a summary of where we are today, and then the rest of the time, the allocated time, I'll be focusing on the forthcoming budget and what can we expect from budget, what sort of proposals are there, and the way forward. Now, when we talk of COVID-19 and its impact on economy, there are the three major challenges which are posed by COVID-19 to the world. Of course, we are passing through this health pandemic, but then all the multilateral organizations from World Bank to IMF and AGP, United Nations, they are warning of a very severe economic recession. They are calling it a recession of a much higher magnitude than the Great Depression. And we have already started feeling it in case of oil market price crash in the United States and in the rest of the oil exporting countries. And the third aspect, the third major challenge that the countries would face after health and economic recession is a food crisis. So it is a health crisis, it is economic recession, and it's food crisis. And all the economies, including Pakistani economy, they have to adjust and readjust themselves as the COVID unfolds. So the first thing is that, of course, we are not sure, as Prime Minister also mentioned yesterday, we are not sure when this pandemic would end. And this uncertainty actually have compelled the governments to keep on revising their strategies. So in case of economic planning, one part is to treat the health impact of the virus, providing the medical treatments, the PPEs, the personal protection equipments, vaccines and ventilators, etc. So basically investing in public sector health infrastructure. The second impact, the part of economic management, is to contain the spread of this disease. And in order to contain it, of course, the lockdown policies, whether you call them a strict lockdown or it's a smart lockdown or it's soft lockdown, staying at home, social distancing, all the things, all of them, they have a cost. And the second part of economic management is basically taking care of that cost in stopping this disease to get disseminated. And the third and most important, which is very important for Pakistan, is avoiding a food crisis. Now, Pakistan is lucky in a sense that 90% of our food requirements, they are met domestically. This crisis would be extremely severe for the countries which are importing most of their caloric requirements from other countries. So with the borders closed down and with the restrictions on civil, the aviations and the flights, etc., of course, the net food importing countries, they are in a much worse shape. But for a country like Pakistan, where we have already got sufficient amount of wheat, now it depends on the rains and weather, how quickly we'll be able to complete its harvesting in Punjab. In Sindh, it's already done. So in this case, the economic managers, they have to invest in keeping food supply chains intact. And here we argue that money can't be substitute for food. So if the food supply chain, which in case of Pakistan is very transient, it's very informal, if that gets disrupted, if we can't ensure supply of food from farm to fork, that may lead to an unrest. So we sitting in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, and in our mega cities, we feel ourselves quite secure, irrespective of the fact how much money we have. because we still can have access to wheat flour, we can have access to sugar and vegetable oil and vegetables and fruits and pulses and meat and poultry, etc. But if that food supply chain gets disrupted due to strict lockdown or due to a severe spread of disease, shortage of labor, etc. So that can create a havoc. And these are the three components that the government would have to deal in the forthcoming budget as well as today. And these are the three major areas which are getting affected by this pandemic. Now, basically, it's a debate and it's a struggle between lives and livelihoods. So government's foremost priority is to have a balance between saving lives and saving livelihoods. And again, there is no scientific formula. It's learning by doing. And it's not only government of Pakistan. If you look at, follow the news, pandemic related news, in the news today, the newspaper, you will find on page 12, there's a big picture of a protest going on in Pennsylvania. The protesters in the United States, they're protesting that the government, they should ease off their lockdown. Similarly, if you follow the news emerging from Europe, so again, you will find that people, they're protesting there. As I said, that no country has the right balance or the right formula where to enforce strict lockdown and where to open up. Lockdown is basically a strategy to buy time for preparedness. Lockdown can never ensure end of this disease. If it could ensure end of this disease, we would not have found cases in Wuhan. So in China, after a very strict lockdown, while they thought that they had conquered the COVID-19, so now again we can observe that the cases are emerging from Wuhan and from other parts of China. So basically, in this globally connected world, the moment we will ease off our restrictions, the cases, they would start surging. So it's just a matter of time. So lockdown's foremost objectivity is for the government to gain time so that they can prepare their health infrastructure to cope with this disease, and B, they can arrange finances for coping with economic issues that are emerging, and third, to sustain the food crisis. Now, with this context, if we look at it, there are four major phenomena that we are already observing. Unemployment, of course, there is an unprecedented increase in unemployment in Pakistan. Businesses, they simply can't afford to pay rents and pay utility bills and not to do business and keep on paying wages as well. And in the absence of a universal social protection system, the layoffs, they are in fashion, and people, they are laying off. Unfortunately, the refinancing scheme of State Bank of Pakistan, which they have introduced, is not taking care of the requirements of small farmers, small businesses. So small businesses which don't have collateral, commercial banks, they are shy of lending them. The minimum threshold for a business to get benefit from State Bank's refinancing facility is that they need to, their payroll size should be at least 3 crore rupees. Now, 3 crore rupees is a hefty amount, and small and medium enterprises, of course, they are not able to get benefit of it. So unemployment is on rise. SMEs, STPI has done an intensive research, and the paper is available on our website, which was quoted by Asad Umar and which was quoted by Hamad Azhar in the National Assembly as well. So our estimate is that more than 1 million small and medium entrepreneurs, if they have to keep shut for 1 month, the probability that they will never be able to start their businesses again is almost 90%. So they will simply wipe off. And that would even get worse if you look at the figures of import and export for the month of April. So according to the State Bank of Pakistan and the Federal Bureau of Statistics, the exports, they went down by 54%, and imports, they went down by 32%. So of course, here we are getting a major hit. Oil prices, we were happy that oil prices, those came down, and of course, there was a 30 to 40% reduction in oil prices in Pakistan as well. But in the medium to long term, this would lead to disinflation. And the reason it would lead to disinflation, because our partners in Middle East, our partners in Europe, they will go into recession. And when they go into recession, of course, it would be again coming down of exports, coming down of imports, and the major hit would be on remittances. So the Federal Bureau of Statistics and State Bank, their estimate is that in the calendar year 2020, start from pandemic till December 2020, Pakistan would be losing out at least $5 billion in remittances. We have already seen our expats, they have started coming back from Gulf countries. And if economy in Gulf countries, they get hit due to reduced oil prices, it means in the short term, we will be getting some benefit. But in the medium to long term, it would mean major recession and major fall in our remittances. Now, what need to be done? This is the macroeconomic framework. This is the framework macroeconomic figures which were released by Finance Division, State Bank of Pakistan, and IMF country report. So the first column here is the pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, our GDP growth was around estimated was 2.4%. And if you look at other major macroeconomic indicators, if not extremely healthy, those were slightly reasonable compared to the data of 2018-2019. But in case of 2019-20, the projections, they are not very healthy. The GDP growth is estimated to be minus 1.5. Of course, our Ministry of Finance, they can show a healthy growth, and the reason is Economic Survey of Pakistan historically is compiled on the basis of the progress of first 9 months. So in the first 9 months, the progress was okay. If we look at the figure of first 8 months, on the basis of it, the formula was that we used to take the actual numbers for the first 8 or 9 months, and then used to take an average for the next 3 months. But here average can't be taken because the type of decline in all other indicators that we are seeing. So the GDP would be somewhere, depending how the government want to project it, they can still project it a positive number, maybe 1% or 0.5%, but it would be somewhere from 0.5 to minus 1.5%. And all other figures, those would also get declined. Now, what is the challenge in budget preparation? So the major challenge is fiscal management. With the IMF, we have agreed to keep a primary deficit, and primary deficit, as most of you, either the economists are sitting here. So primary deficit is a country's fiscal deficit minus the interest that it had to pay on its previous borrowing. So the primary deficit, which was 0.4%, now it would come down to somewhere, if you look here, it would come down to 2.9%, and that is a huge decline. And the major challenge for government would be to keep its revenue and expenditure in place, and also be able to pay for the interest that it had to pay on the borrowed money. Now, it is quite difficult because FBR has already shortfall of its target in the first 8 months by 484 billion rupees. And of course, in March and April, due to lack of economic activities, the estimate is that it would again lose another 300 billion rupees. So that is a major shortfall that FBR is facing. Then, of course, government has to spend on healthcare. Government has to spend on economic recovery. All the packages that are being announced, almost 1.2 billion rupees. So macroeconomic fundamentals, they would get it drastically, and it is within that Pakistan has to prepare its budget. Now, if we look at the external financing, Pakistan would require around $2 billion in the next fiscal year. Pakistan required $1.9 billion in 2020, which got matched by IMF's rapid finance instrument, $1.4 billion, and by World Bank and ADB and a few other bilateral partners. But that is a one-off amount that we can expect to receive. As I told you, that most of these partners, they already have their own problem. So the chances that they would keep on donating us and keep on paying us in the and keep on lending us, actually the IMF $1.4 billion, it's a loan, and same is the World Bank and ADB. So we shouldn't expect this external finance flow that it would keep on interrupted in the next calendar fiscal year as well, and that would create a problem in balancing our revenue with our expenditure, and that would hit Pakistan's current account. So right now, Pakistan's current account is sort of balanced. We saw hot money flowing out when State Bank reduced its base rate, the policy rate, but it got compensated with the IMF remittance and with World Bank and ADB amount. But next fiscal year, perhaps there would be a risk to current account foundation. So what would be the priorities for budget in this scenario? My own understanding is that government would be is negotiating with IMF, and government would be preparing a budget, but with a very clear understanding that the revenue target would depend on how COVID-19 unfolds in Pakistan in next 6 to 9 months. There would be a business as usual, and business as usual is today's projection, where we have around 1,400 to 1,500 cases per day. We are observing around 30 to 40 deaths per day, and that should be a business as usual for us. The worst case scenario, God forbid, would be where all of a sudden the mortality rates start increasing, and if it start increasing, that would be a worst case scenario where government would have to go for again a very strict lockdown. The health system would face the danger of getting collapsed. So government would agree with the IMF a framework, a ballpark figure with a very clear understanding that there can be scenario A, scenario B. Scenario A is business as usual, where government would try to somehow collect around 3,500 to 4,000 billion rupees at the max, although IMF will be asking for more. And worst case scenario, no one knows how that would unfold. But looking at expenditure side, all the packages that are announced by Prime Minister and by NCOC, now those would get actually vetted and approved by the Parliament under this budget. So 1.2 trillion rupees, which are already announced, just 1,200 billion rupees. Now they would get repacked and they would get relabeled in the budget. So there would be some amount allocated for medium and small and medium enterprises. There can be some sort of tax reliefs. Government would have to compensate for revenue loss as well. So they would try to go for non-FBR revenue, which is of course a GST, and which would be a levy on petroleum products, etc. And government would have to beef up the budget for health sector and the public, to beef up public sector social sector development program. I think one of the silver lining in this COVID-19 is that governments all over the world now they can't ignore the importance of public sector development programs, PSGPs, and social sector development. So public sector health infrastructure, which was a neglected pillar, not only in Pakistan, but in most of the countries, now that would gain importance and that would gain significance. So that would be there. Now, there would be, of course, expansion of SAS program, expansion of benefit income support program. So one-off measures and this 1,200 rupees which are being provided, those would get unfolded. So far, the 3 categories of SAS payments have been made, and now we are hoping that there would be a 4th category as well. So category means that benefit income support program, they have their poverty scorecard, and on basis of which, let's say, the people who were getting benefit from it, their score was around 21 on poverty score. 21 was the threshold. So 4.5 million households were getting benefit of it. Now this threshold is relaxed, and now in the 3rd category, the people falling up to 32 score, those were also given the payment, the one-off payment. So the target is to reach to 12 million household. So in the 4th category, this score can be further relaxed. So this threshold may be relaxed from 31 to 35 or 37, depending on how much money the government has got. So this is how they would be, the categories would be actually implemented. Now, of course, this budget, it also have some opportunities. One of the opportunity, as I said, in the short term is oil prices. Government is going to hedge the oil prices for the very first time in the history of Pakistan. So about 10% of our petroleum requirement would be hedged at the current prices, which are historically low, and that would help government to take care of some of the expenses. This reduction in policy rate, 1% reduction in interest rate, actually helps the government its debt payment, service charges get reduced by 50 billion rupees. So if we look at the last 2.5 months, almost 5.25% reduction in interest rate. So it means government has got about a cushion of about 300 billion rupees that it had to pay in lieu of service charges to commercial banks. So it's that's where it would have a cushion. Government also need to, I think, invest in reducing digital inequality. Now, I don't see a post-COVID. I think now we need to divide and categorize the time pre-COVID, which was until 31st December 2019, and after COVID. COVID is now, it would be part of our lives, irrespective of the fact how soon we get vaccines. So like we could never get back the pre-September 11 era, we will never get back the pre-COVID era. So in the after COVID, one of the important thing is digital connectivity, and government would have to spend on digital inequality, reducing digital inequality, if we want to keep on providing education, be it higher education or primary education or middle education, if we keep on providing telehealth medicine, if we keep on providing the digital financial inclusion and financial transaction, if we keep on providing the online delivery order, be it for the food or for other commodities. So for each and everything, it has to invest in e-commerce, and it has to invest in reducing digital inequality. And I'm sure that there would be some allocation for it. And of course, looking at some of the export niches, one of the niche that we have got only yesterday, Pakistan signed this agreement with the US pharmaceutical company for production of this medicine, Remicedine, not only its production, but also its export. So that would be one of the niche that Pakistan would have got. And second, I think our automobile industry and auto parts sector, perhaps they need to now start producing ventilators and related accessories, because this is a niche that we can export. And finally, as I said, the future of IMF program, I've already told you that it would be depending on certain scenarios, business as usual and worst case scenario. And on the basis of it, IMF will be flexible to allow changing the ceilings. One thing where IMF would not be flexible is our state-owned enterprises, the loss-making state-owned enterprises. So IMF will not show any flexibility in case of Pakistan Steel Mill. It will not show its flexibility for PIA or for other loss-making enterprises. That's where we have to put our house in order. And the second where IMF will not show any flexibility is our power sector payments. And now with the record reduction in oil prices, I think this is an opportunity where we can reduce the cost of our power generation, and we can somehow reduce the losses. Pakistan is already in negotiation with the G20 for debt relief and debt rescheduling. And if it happens, perhaps we'll get a relief for around $1.98 billion for the next calendar year. So this is the broader picture of economy and how it has got affected by COVID. Now, finally, the way forward is, of course, we need to look beyond relief. Relief is there, but now we need to learn to live with COVID. And living with COVID means that now it's the self-responsibility, and it's a collective responsibility for each one of us to observe those SOPs. Government can only announce standard operating procedure, but government would never be able to get those SOPs implemented. It's we, the people of Pakistan, who need to get them implemented, not only for our own safety and security, but also for the safety and security of those who are dependent on us, our family members, our children, our parents. And of course, when shopkeepers and the businesses, they have to observe those SOPs, not only for the safety of the customers, but also for their own safety. So in the recovery phase, the businesses, of course, they would start opening up, but industries, they would start opening up. Transport, it would start opening up. It can't be shut down and closed down for an indefinite period of time. But as I said, it is our collective responsibility. If we really want to see economy moving forward, we have to observe those SOPs ourselves. Secondly, while tax and regulatory burden, that need to be rationalized, it's also important that how government can subsidize information, network, and marketing cost for Pakistani enterprises. The point that I was making, government need to reduce digital inequality. And finally, government need to reform the market reforms so that the competition regime can be strengthened, so that there is a level playing field for small players. If the refinancing scheme of State Bank is only beneficial for those businesses whose payroll is 300 million rupees per month, then it means that all the businesses whose payroll is below 3 crore rupees per month, of course, they can't compete with the bigger one, and that would create a major anomaly. I'll stop here. Here I have got my email address and my Twitter address. So those of you who would like to follow up, have any follow-up question, or would like to get any information, they're more than welcome to contact me, or they can visit our website, stpi.org or stpi.tv. Thank you very much for your sparing the time.
Thank you very much, sir. We came to know that you have to leave early. So I would like Dr. Fizur Rahman to open up any questions or any from our respected guest. Then we'll move to our second guest of honor.
So I'll have my slides here just in case if any of the participants would like
to do share us, and we will share it to our listeners and participants. There is any question?
Should I stop sharing my screen, or would you like me to keep the slides open?
Yeah, please keep for a while so that people can note your contact address. There is one student audience in the student, Talha Nadeem. If you can come forward and please ask the question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, if the
Yeah, a wonderful speech, and thank you for your for sharing your thoughts. I just have one question that what is how would the government will reprioritize the public spending towards the health system? because now it is very critical right now, and we need a lot of money, because if you look at even the testing per million of people, this is also very low, and we don't have the sufficient health facilities. And unfortunately, in previous years, the budget spending upon the health facilities has remained very low. So how would you come up, how would you bolster this situation, the health situation?
Can we take 3-4 questions at a time and then I can respond them?
Okay. Sir Abdul Rafi sir, please, if you can ask question. Sir Abdul Rafi.
Okay, thank you, sir. I just want to ask that you know that the 10th NFC award is in the process, and at this point of time, according to the 7th NFC award, the provinces are collectively entitled to about 57 to 58% of the usable pool of taxes. And this time, for the very first time, the government is looking for some additional fiscal responsibilities from the side of the provinces regarding the reduction of losses for the state-owned enterprises and all other such things. So do you think that in this budget these parameters can be accommodated for the NFC award?
Thank you. Next question, please.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
Okay, so firstly, what is your assessment of wheat production and yields in this Rabi season based on initial estimates? And secondly, what do you expect the likely impact of locust attacks to be on crop production? Thank you.
We can have one more and then I'll start responding.
Dr. Imran Khan, please
ask.
Sir. Yes, Dr. Imran Khan.
I have a question regarding the stabilization policies, because in the media there is a lot of debate that the policymaker and the central bank they responded very slow regarding the COVID-19, because there is a lot of debate and there is a lot of controversies regarding the reduction in the bank rate.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the last question first. You see, when we are entering in disinflation or when we are entering in greater recession, perhaps my argument is that reduction in policy rate would not serve. In United States right now, the policy rate is negative, and same is the case with many of the European countries. So if by keeping policy rate low could have given some sort of stimulus to businesses, of course, the oil crash that was observed earlier in the US market and then in Brent would not have been there. Of course, if due to pandemic, if the businesses are closed or if the shopping malls they are not open, even if it is 0% interest rate, it would not be a bigger stimulus. But looking at the overall response of State Bank of Pakistan, I think quantitative easing should be appreciated. In last 2 months, it's a 5.25% policy rate that State Bank slashed, one of the highest in response to the COVID. Remember that those countries who are now at a 0% interest rate, their pre-COVID interest rate was not more than 2 or 3%. So in our case, it's 5.25%, which is slashed. I actually can foresee that there would be further reduction in it. And the reason is I can foresee a reduction in inflation due to the cost of energy coming down, the 30 to 40% reduction in the prices of petroleum. And second, due to a curtailment of demand. Right now, there is some sort of demand, or the prices of food commodities are high due to Ramadan. But after Eid, I foresee that there would be again a stagnancy in demand, and that's why perhaps there would be a room for further reduction in the interest rate. There was a room right now for government to maybe for State Bank to maybe reduce it by another 100 basic points, but that would have affected our rupee to dollar parity. State Bank also have to be mindful of the fact that the moment the interest rate would come down, the people who have invested in either domestic investment and the saving either in domestic bonds or in banks, they would immediately withdraw that money and they would start buying dollar. And that would put a pressure on dollar. So of course, it would be of no use to anyone. On one hand, if State Bank reduces the interest rate, on the other hand, rupee to dollar parity, it goes to 170 or 175 rupees per dollar. So State Bank is prudent in a way that if there would be further flow of external financing in next fiscal year, perhaps they would reduce it. Otherwise, they would keep it here. Now in NFC award, changing the formula for the vertical and horizontal distribution, basically this is protected under Constitution of Pakistan. So in the 18th Amendment, a special clause was inserted, clause 3A in this NFC, that the share of provinces cannot be reduced from the previous NFC award. For that purpose, government would have to go to Parliament. It can be an act of Parliament. So budget in the finance document, budget can't undo anything which is part of Constitution. For that, of course, one thing that government need to do is to have a meeting of Council of Common Interest, discuss this issue in the Council of Common Interest, try to get some sort of consensus from all the government, all the provinces, and only then that formula can be changed. Otherwise, we have already seen the last two finance commission which were constituted by the previous governments. 8th finance NFC and 9th NFC, both of them, they couldn't deliver any award. And 10th NFC would be inconclusive if they tried to change this formula, because Sindh would certainly veto it. On public spending on health system, as I mentioned, that it is of course an area which was heavily underfunded, not only in Pakistan, but everywhere. Public health infrastructure was low in most of developing countries. And now this COVID, it has told us that our major insecurity is not an atomic war. It is this tiny virus that no one can see but it has shattered the whole world. So of course there would be major allocations both for treatment for this pandemic, as well as for strengthening the health infrastructure and for non-COVID disease as well. On this wheat production and locust, wheat production was not up to the mark. I think at least 2 million metric ton will be below 2 million metric ton from our target. The target was for 27 million metric ton. The production would be around 25 million metric ton, and the reason was unusual rainfall and slightly lower temperature, which was required for wheat grain to get maturity. Right now, with this rain still on, it is affecting harvesting in central Punjab, and that would also affect the final wheat yield. So my own guess is that we'll be short of our target somewhere 2 to 2.5 million metric ton. But the good point is we already have some carryover stock from the last season. So we'll have sufficient wheat for the next season, provided we could keep our food supply chain intact and we could stop wheat getting smuggled from Pakistan to Afghanistan. The rates in Afghanistan and Central Asia are much higher than the rate in Pakistan. With locust, if we couldn't control it here, the FAO's estimates are that Pakistan's economy can face a loss of around 600 billion rupees if we couldn't stop this swarms in Balochistan and in Sindh. For that, we require, of course, aerial spray. For aerial spray, the government require, the National Food Security Ministry requires 6 to 7 aeroplanes, which I know that they have already sent this requisition to rent them out. They still haven't got it. So most probably Army would be called upon. to use Air Force plane and to do this spray. But we need to see that when it happens, because of course, right now the focus is on controlling pandemic, but this locust would be a major threat to our food security.
Thank you very much for valuable comments. It was very knowledgeable session. I would like to call our next guest, is Dr. Mohammad Saeed Chaudhary, to come and share your thoughts regarding this topic.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hafizur Rahman and Dr. Imran and Farhat for inviting me for this very good opportunity to share my experience and learn from the very experienced audience and the participants. So, starting with, as we know, Dr. Abid Salahri has a very comprehensively elaborated all the situation along with the opportunities and the challenges which we have at the moment and the actions which the government is taken so far. So I will just fiscal space to the government. So from the external fronts, what we did from at the level of Economic Affairs Division, we immediately tried to explore the external financial assistance. But you know, at this time, the situation was very unprecedented as compared to the past. In the past, when such situations came, some disaster came in the world level, so it was majorly focused in one country or in one region. But this time, the situation was different. All the countries, developed countries, developing countries, and the underdeveloped countries were having almost the same problem. And if we compare this situation with the Great Depression of 1930s, even this situation is different. At that time, the challenge was the economy, but at this time, the challenge was double. I mean, on the one side, it was the economic challenge. On the other side, it was health challenge. So what we did, our immediate response was to explore external assistance from the bilateral development partners and the multilateral development partners to provide some fiscal space to the government. So immediately we were able to get some immediate response from Asian Development Bank and the World Bank through reappropriatization of their existing loan facilities in the Pakistan. Our second part was to say, because the situation was prevailing over a longer period of time, though on health side, there are no major economic challenge, because so far as compared to other countries, the number of patients and the is lower as compared to other countries. But on the socio-economic side, the challenge is the more. So on the socio-economic side, we try to get more additional resources from the bilateral and multilateral development countries. So in this regard, the Prime Minister Imran Khan made an appeal to the international community for some immediate debt relief, and this and G20 was positive on this. On the appeal of Prime Minister, at least we were able to get some immediate relief from the G20 countries. Actually, these are the G20 countries, but we are engaged with the 11 countries only. So we were able to get some relief from the G20 countries, which was around $1.8 billion for the period of 8 months. So second, our option was, because we are heavily dependent on the foreign economic assistance as well, due to the reason we are having a twin deficit. So as we know at this hall, I can share with some figures with you. This year, our target was to get around 12 billion foreign economic assistance from bilaterals, multilaterals, and other commercial sources. So in the first 9 months, we were able to get 8.4 of this. So in the next 3 months, we have targeted to get mobilize $5.6 billion from the external economic assistance from our bilateral and multilateral development partners. So in this regard, the other option which we are trying to explore is we try to get similar relief from the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. But unfortunately, they did not come up with this similar relief as we have got from the G20 country due to the several reasons. But they have committed to provide additional financing through new loans. So far, what we have received from the bilateral and multilateral development partner is we can divide it into 3 categories. One was for the health sector, which was immediate response. From ADB, we were able to get $350 million. From the World Bank, we were able to get $300 million. But these were all the loans. On the grant side, we were able to get only very few grants. So far, we have got around $74 million grants from the friendly countries, which are including European Union, Japan, and US. But to meet our external needs, we try to explore additional resources from the ADB and the World Bank through development policy credit. This is very important in the current scenario because due to the corona effect, the fiscal space is shrinking. On the one side, the government's revenues are decreasing, and on the other side, government's expenditures are increasing, especially on the COVID response and the socio-economic impact of the corona. So to bridge this gap, our options were limited. As we know, we were already under the IMF's Extended Fund Facility Program. Due to this program, the government was not able to borrow from the central bank. And the other challenge was the domestic interest rate or the policy interest rate was very high. And the third is the government has already borrowed a lot from the domestic market. As we know, our 2/3 loan are the domestic ones. So then we moved from domestic to the foreign. So by borrowing from the foreign side, foreign countries, we can have dual advantage. One is to bridge our current account deficit, and the other is to bridge our fiscal gap. So this was our approach to follow both way. So as a result of this, what we expect is that during the next month, let me share some figures with you. For the next year, what we anticipate is we will get around $15 billion from the bilateral and the multilateral countries. Major multilaterals are ADB and the World Bank, while major bilaterals are the China and Saudi Arabia and some other countries. So total, it will make around $15 billion. So in addition to that, what we anticipate is as the Prime Minister has taken this initiative of G20 debt relief, which is, though it's not a relief, it's only a cash breathing. Because we have to pay the debt, we have to pay the interest rate, but only they have suspended, or we can say we have deferred the payment and we have shifted the payment to the next years. We will not pay any amount during the next 8 months. So what we are thinking now, during the upcoming World Economic Forum, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is likely to again appeal the international community to extend this debt relief from 8 months to maybe 20 months or 30 months, depending on the situation. Through this, what we can get some breathing space. We will roll over some loans to the next years, and through this, we can create some fiscal space to meet our increasing domestic needs, as we are aware the fact that this year our fiscal deficit is going to touch 9.5% of the GDP. So this is the one option. The other option is the Prime Minister, we have suggested that Prime Minister may like to go for the debt swaps. debt swap is converting the debts into the grants, which are utilized by the borrowing countries for some social sector areas. So what we are suggesting is that the lenders, the G20 countries, should go and they should give some relief in the form of debt swap. That will be more helpful for the developing countries. It will not only give some relief from the foreign payments, but it will also be helpful, because when we will convert this debt into the grants for use by the borrowing countries, the borrowing countries will use these grants to improve their social sectors. They can use for the infrastructure. So they will strengthen the domestic economies. So what we are looking for is, now we want some domestic, debt swaps for 3 priority areas. One is health, the second is education, the third is the nature. Because the climate changes have equal challenges for us, as Pakistan is very prone to the changes of climate change, as we have seen from the recent past. So though Corona is the immediate challenge which we have, but we are not ignoring the other challenges and needs of the country. So in this framework, we are looking for the debt relief from the bilateral countries, as well as we are looking for the debt swaps with the developing countries. So it will help us to create fiscal space for our domestic economies. So with this, I will say again, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And if you have any question and answer, please welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. We would like to go for question at the end, because we would like all the questions to be asked together. I would like to ask our next guest, Dr. Ghulam Samad, to please share your thought on today's topic on the webinar.
Right. Can I share my slide with you guys?
Yes, the screen sharing is on. You can share yourself.
Let's see. It sounds okay. So I got the screen share, and then I go to the share. It's a basic. Let's go to the share.
Yes, it's coming on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Naman. Thank you so much, UMT, and thank you for the invitation. I will talk the COVID-19 crisis, its impacts, challenges, and policy responses. And I believe Abid Suleri and Saeed already walked you guys through the detailed kind of different overall economic situations. So while they were talking, I was just trimming down my slides. So I will not take much of the time. Hopefully it will be like 12 to 15 minutes. So let me quickly jump into my second slide, where I will discuss, I don't know, can you, okay, here. So where I will discuss the, the global economic situation. And then I will discuss briefly like how this global economic situation is basically integrated with the Pakistan economic situation. And you guys are aware, it all depends on how this one specific economy is linked with the rest of the economies. And then I will talk on the impact on Pakistan economy, more specifically, where we got the actual data across the different ministries. I believe we got 27 ministries data and the line ministry data. This is something like, the actual for this exercises that we did for the NOCC, the report. And then I will end up with the policy responses, the quick policy responses that I got, I believe is one of the important one. So the global economic situation, Abid already discussed about the overall economic kind of, the different agencies that they came up with the different estimations. ADB, they have the different projection, UNESCAPE, UNCTAD, and recently the Bank of England, they warn us the UK economy is going to be one of the, recession in next couple of months. And one of the reasons for this economic recession in the UK economy will be like their output is going to be reduced by almost 30%. So the UK economy is going to hit severely in next few months based on the Bank of England, a recent report published by the Financial Times. Similar kind of scenario we can see for the rest of the economies as well. So what I mean to say here is the global economic situation is basically going to determine the fate of Pakistan economies. And we can see clearly one of the main destinations for Pakistan economy is the UK and the USA and the rest of a few European economies. So definitely the global economic situation is going to hit the Pakistan economy. The real question is how this global situation is going to transform, or how we can link it with our situation in the Pakistan economy. And I believe the three channels that are fundamental for this understanding. The first one is we have seen the external and the domestic demand is crippled significantly. Similarly, the second biggest channel, they can be, like very important for this discussion, is the disruption in the global, regional, and domestic production. And clearly, we can see in our economies, I don't want to go to like the SMEs kind of discussion, the production at all level is disrupted. And thirdly, that is again very substantially been entering into the Pakistan economy is the reduction in the trade volume because of different reasons. Supply value chain interruption is there. So I believe these three channels are very much important while we are basically discussing how the global economic situation is relating to our economy. So recently, the PIDE was asked to prepare one of the reports. And PIDE was also the member of the subcommittee of National Coordination Committee for COVID-19 economic analysis. And for these exercises, chaired by the Planning Commission of Pakistan, they came up with they asked the different ministries and the data. And we got the actual data for all the ministries. And then in the next phase, we came up with the simulation analysis, and finally we came up with summary for this whole economic analysis. So what the ministries came up with a different estimation. And again, it's the actual real data that we got for these exercises. The rest of the data, like all the organizations in Pakistan, they've been, their estimation is basically based on simulation exercises. But I believe the real data is not there. So the aviation industry, they came up with the figure, is 13.6 billion they are going to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please carry on.
Yes, everybody is listening.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
So the ministries, aviation industry, they came up with the figure that we got the loss of 30 billion rupees. And this estimation is up till June 2020. Similarly, the Security and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, the halting of the economy, the slowdown of the economy, the stock markets, we incurred loss of more than 250 billion rupees. The Ministry of Energy came up with a different, like the transport sector has not been using the oil, the taxes, levies, the different stuff has been not using. So the Ministry of Energy, they came up with the figure of 136 billion rupees. And I can go on with the railways and the National Food Securities and Ministry of IT, and I can count on the 7 ministries. The total loss that we got from these ministries is rupees 628 billion rupees. It's a huge loss that has been currently entering our economy. And if we relate this loss to the Federal Board of Revenue loss, FBR came up with the total loss of 500 billion rupees. So substantial revenue loss is being also related when there is a slowdown in the economy. So the simulation kind of exercises, then different agencies in Pakistan like SDP, the Lahore School of Economics, PIDE, and I can name a few others too, significantly the Pakistan economy is going to hit. And the Ministry of Finance, day before yesterday, and the independent agencies, they came up with the figure that the fiscal deficit will be the highest in Pakistan history, and probably it will be like somewhere from 9 to 9.5%. Significantly, the fiscal deficit is going to hit. And Abid Soleris have already discussed about the impact of the fiscal deficit on the forthcoming budget. So I don't want to there. Significantly, we can relate the current economic situation with the upcoming the budget. Similarly, based on, a little bit optimistic, although the figure for the GDP is less than 1%, or somewhere in quoting in like a negative percentage. But let's suppose we take the average figure of all those different agencies. So the average figure is somewhere around 1 to 1.5%. It's again very low for a developing country where we have huge population. The huge population, employment, and different economic activities is based on the economic activities. So the economic activities based on GDP is again going to be crippled in next few months. So it's substantially, we are again facing another economic hit that have a repercussion for the fiscal, for the upcoming budget. What are the factors that is basically responsible for this ongoing economic mess? And clearly, Saeed Saab and Abis Soleri elaborated on it, so I don't want to go there. But revenue has hit a lot. And similarly, we got the hit on the export as well. So significantly, the export and the revenue is one of the main factors been contributing to the ongoing economic mess. PIDE in the Lahore School of Economics, in the rest of organization, they came up with a different scenario, like a worse scenario, or somewhere like a medium scenario, you can name it. But the consensus, the conclusion of all these organizations is Pakistan is going to be hit severely, their GDP, and it will be like somewhere around 1% or less than 1%. Employment loss is again very huge, both in formal and informal sector. And my rough estimation is it will be somewhere up to $4 million. But if you go with like a, kind of a little bit more figure, it can range to 10 million in both formal and informal sector. And thirdly, one of the main responsible when the global economy is shrinking, we are going to lose huge export, and mainly the textile sector will be hit again. So all these different factors is going to contribute to the economic mess that has been created in Pakistan, and is bringing a lot of challenges for us. Like, how in this current situation we are going to overcome this economic mess. So before I go to the way forward, very quickly, you guys have been seeing, like whether this crisis in a V shape, or it's in like a U shape, or W shape, or L shape. But before we go to the prospect, like the shape prospects, let's thoroughly understand whether this COVID crisis, how much these crises are deep and how much it's lengthy. The depth and the length basically will determine the shape prospect for Pakistan. So very briefly, what does a U-shaped crisis mean? The V-shaped crisis mean? So V-shape, we can see from the shape is like there's a steep decline in economic situation, but there's a kink at the end, and then we have again up, right up after the kink. So the prime period, the time of the crisis is very low. It might be like a month or so. So this one is the optimistic situation for any country, like the advanced countries and for the developing countries, and they want the V-shaped kind of the prospect for their economy. But the rest of the three shapes, like the U, where you guys can clearly see when there's the steep, and then the prolonged period. I'm not exactly sure. It might be like 2 months or 3 months, and then after 3 months, you guys go up and you can go to the recovery phase. The W phase, and I can see Pakistan somewhere in the W phase or in the L shape, of course, based on the different kind of the analysis that we have been projecting. But W is, for example, right now we are in the steep downward curve. Might be in a month or so will be in a recovery, but I guess if this lockdown relaxation is not fruitful for Pakistan, then there will be again another hit for our economy, and then that hit will determine again the fate of Pakistan. So it will be somewhere W in, I'm not again exactly sure how long it will be, but it might be more than a year if we are going in a W kind of a prospect shape for the country. The fourth and the last one, which is the severe shape, which is the L1. Like once you drop, and then you prolong in their like the last kind of a king there for, I'm not exactly sure how months. So these are the biggest challenges. The policymakers need to understand that, how we can, kind of overcome these kind of challenges. And the quickest possibility for the recovery will be we, or if not, let's hope for the U-shape based on the different economic kind of a prospect that we have already discussed with you by Saeed in a kind of a debt relief or debt swap and different agreements. So these are the very important consideration the policy needs to have.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, if you have completed, please discontinue the screen share so that I can share it to some other. Okay, I would like to welcome Dr. Uzma Hanif to please share your thought on the topic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. First of all,
did I
would
finish
like to...
or?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Should I start?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Ghulam.
So, do you want me to finish or it's okay?
Actually, there was an issue with the screen. I think if you have not completed, do carry on. Please share the screen. And
where I left you guys, like where you lost me.
That was L-shaped economy.
Okay, great. So let me come up with the second last slide, and this slide is the policy responses. Let me share it quickly again.
Yes, sir. Please carry on.
Can you see it now?
No.
Right. Can you see the slide now? No.
No, it's not coming up.
Okay, let me say this, so just 2 slides. So let me finish. So what are the, based on the L shape in the different shapes I already mentioned, what are the policy responses? And I don't want again go to the detail, but Saeed and the Abis have already discussed the fiscal stimulus. We need to increase the fiscal stimulus. Domestic demand has been crippled down. There's a huge uncertainty. So we have to overcome those uncertainty. How we can overcome the uncertainty? One of the biggest thing need for a country is the increase the fiscal stimulus. And this has been yesterday, youth policy rating is helping the fiscal stimulus. The Federal Board of Revenue is again coming up with the different packages for the exports. And I just want to mention one of those packages, that is the current sales tax reduction to the exporters. Is again will be burden on the economy, but to increase the fiscal stimulus and to overcome the export kind of challenges, increase the revenue, the ABR is suggesting to increase the support to the exporters. In the next support the FBR is going to do for the exporter is they are clearing the 10 years outstanding areas in terms of the income tax, sales and custom duties. The Ministry of Industry and Production, they came up with the 50 billion kind of support for the utility stores, and 200 billion has been allocated for the daily wages. Where they are going to subsidize the different electricity usages. So briefly, I don't want to go to the rest of the ministries, but the policy responses to increase the fiscal stimulus has been there, but still, already mentioned by the Abis Soleri, the SME sector is one of the fundamental, but unfortunately, the fiscal stimulus is not reaching out to the SME sectors. And again, SME sector has been suffered a lot in this COVID situation. So my last slide is the way forward. In the One of my biggest way forward for this whole COVID kind of analysis is the digital inequality already mentioned by the Abdul Suleri. We've been the countries in this whole region, those countries and those domestic commerce, they've been taken kind of like they were in the advantages where they were connected with the kind of different interfaces. For example, like Amazon, Facebook, Twitter's, in the Alibaba and the rest of the, you can name it, they've been benefited a lot even in this COVID crisis. And the reason is the digital divide were not significant across these economies. Pakistan, unfortunately, and recently the CARIC did a study for the CARIC region, and Pakistan is a member of the CARIC region. The e-commerce landscape in Pakistan is not right there where it should be. And secondly, we had again the CARIC region, another study we did for the SPS, the sanitary and phytosanitary measurement, which is one of the fundamentals for the trade facilitation. And the e-phyto certificates is very fundamental in this kind of a COVID analysis. Again, Pakistan is not performing where it should be. So my one fundamental and last way forward is we need to work on the decreasing the digital inequality in Pakistan. So I stop here.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a valuable session. Now I would like Dr. Uzma Hanif, please come on board.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you, UMT Economics Department, Dr. Hafizur Rahman, Noman, and all others for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. And I'm also thankful to Professor Dr. Sulehri, Dr. Saeed, Dr. Samad. They highlighted the issues faced by Pakistan economy by current crisis of the coronavirus. So, well, we all know that we are facing a global health crisis that is spreading human suffering, infecting global economy, and affecting the livelihood of the people around the world. And no country, no society stands immune to this problem. And same is with the climate change. And we know that around the world, we have been observing changes in the rainfall patterns, rise in the sea level, increase in frequency and intensity of extreme climate events like cyclones, droughts, heat waves. And again, no country stands immune to it. Pakistan, being an agrarian country, is proved to be more vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change. Now, what similarities we can see between a pandemic and the climate change, because both are global problems, and what we can learn from coronavirus reaction are policies adopted by different countries and societies. As I discussed earlier, as I said that COVID-19 is proved to be a global crisis, same with the problem of climate change. So both in both of the cases, we can see that global to local actions are very important. Same with the COVID-19 and same with the climate change. So when 2 or 3 days back, I've been discussing the problem of climate change and this, related actions, etc. with some of my students. And one of my students asked that, is coronavirus some climate change induced problem? So first of all, it is not climate change induced problem. So the other thing is, when we compare the climate change and when we say that climate change and COVID-19, actually we would like to see that how we can learn, what lesson we can learn from COVID-19 reactions and policies, and we can apply that policies in order to fight against climate change. So first of all, COVID-19, it imposed the global health emergency, and the weakest are more vulnerable around the world and in different societies and countries as well. The other thing, the COVID-19 actually highlighted the deficiencies in global health system, and we did see that how inequality actually because of inequality, people face more problem because of the inequality. It could be the health inequality, it could be the overall social inequality as well. But what lessons we can learn from this pandemic, that is the delivery of the public goods. In case of the COVID-19, obviously we are facing the problem of the global health facilities. In the same way, in the case of the climate change, we see the problem of how we can come up with the optimum level of the public good around the globe. So what lessons we can learn is that coronavirus pandemic may lead to a deeper understanding of ties that bind us as a society, global society at a large scale. Well-resourced healthcare systems are essential to protect us from health insecurity, including climate change. The support to rebuilding the economy after the pandemic should promote the health equity and environmental protection. So one very important thing is because of pandemic and its impacts, the oil prices around the globe has been reduced. So when we talk about fighting the climate change, so these reduced oil prices may give incentives to investors to invest in these depletable resources, and also give incentives the poor countries like Pakistan to increase the power or electricity supply by using this oil. And obviously that would lead to increase in carbon emissions in near future. So question is, when we would have to rebuild the economy, government should bail out and subsidize the clean industries only. So it means the governments, not only the developed countries government, but also the developing countries government, they have to face the problem they have to face the problem of rebuilding the economy, at the same time that how they can promote the green recovery or green economy recovery of green economy. So that would be, in my view, that would be a big challenge that faced by all over the world, and particularly poor countries like Pakistan. The other recommendation could be the global to local responses, long term, and all responses need to be guided by science to protect the most vulnerable among us, and that require a political will to make a fundamental change when we faced with such risk like pandemic and climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Usmani. This was a very knowledgeable session. Before going to Dr. Hafizur Rahman, I would like everyone to give a poll on today's session. I will open up a poll, and please fill your responses. I will take 2 minutes and wait for your responses. It will come on your screen right now. And once after 2 minutes, I will go back. We go towards Dr. Hafizur Rahman to have a concluding remarks. We'll wait for another half a minute so that everyone can give a poll, and then we'll go towards Dr. Hafizur Rahman.
Hello, everybody. Can you listen me?
Yes, yes. Please carry on.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. Okay. I really appreciate your time and effort for making this webinar a successful one. More than 246 participants were present. I'm really thankful to Dr. Abid Kiyumsalari, Dr. Saeed Chaudhary, Dr. Ghulam Samad, and Dr. Uzma Hanif. I believe that they have given us very valuable information, and the audience will get a lot of benefit from their presentation, and we should continue to work and do some effort for helping the government to overcome the problem of because of the COVID-19 on Pakistan economy. Very clearly, the whole world is striving, struggling, putting effort, spending a lot of money just to overcome these problems. But main thing is this one, Pakistan, where there is a paucity of resources, and still Pakistan is doing very good. And it is because of the role played by the institutions and helping the government, making the, people informative. Still we are in better shape. Hopefully in future days, our country will be quite successful in controlling and overcoming this problem with less or minimum loss. Thank you very much. I ask, Noman Arshad to say the final word, and that's what is done from my side. Thank you.
Okay. So before closing, I would like to have a few questions. Please raise hand, and I would invite you one by one and allow you to ask a question. And if you have any problems with your mic, please write in the chat, and then I will ask on your behalf. So currently, Dr. Sir Abdul Rafi is here, and I'd like him to ask a question.
Two short questions. One from Dr. Saeed Chaudhary. You said that the government is looking for a debt swap. That is, it's a novel idea for Pakistan that is converting the debt to grants, and the grants will be used for infrastructure development besides. I just think that that is not work. What would be the situation of the federal taxation to cover the extra cost of debt service? That is my question from Dr. Saeed.
Yes. I think there is a connectivity problem. We couldn't hear properly.
Can you repeat the question again, Sir Abdul Rafi?
Ji, do you hear me, please?
We're not getting you. So it's like your voice is slow.
Noman Arshad, I think so there is some connectivity problem over there. Would you please ask some other person, he can ask question. Noman, can you hear me?
Okay, sir. Dr. Imran Khan, please come forward and ask your question. And meanwhile, Sir Abdul Rafi, please write your question, and I will ask from your side.
Thank you, Noman. I'm grateful to you. I have a question to Dr. Saeed, that we are making a lot of efforts, and we are searching for official space, and we are we are begging to the donors. Why not we use the UNO platform as a joint effort by the developing countries? Because nowadays what we have seen, that the multilateral institutions, including IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, everybody is active, but the UNO is not so active. So why not we are going to use the UNO platform, and then the voice go more stronger to the donors, whether they are multilateral or bilateral, by collecting or by raising money to fight against this pandemic.
Thank you very much for your question. It's very good question. First of all, let me say that it's not begging. Actually, now each country is dependent on other country in one way or the other way. So some countries are having good resources, they are having much resources, some countries need resources. So this is the way we can interpret it, because even if you see in the trade, each country is dependent. No country is fully sufficient in the production of everything. Similarly, on the financial side, no country has sufficient resources. They are dependent on each other. So coming to your question, why we are tilted towards this multilateral institutions, IMF, World Bank, and the ADB, we are not focusing on UN. As you know, primary focus of the UN is on the political side and the security side. Later on, some subjects like social sector side, like WHO or related activities were added under the framework of UNO. But at the end, UN has very limited resources. UN is again dependent to seek financial assistance from the other countries. If you are aware of this, UNDP, WHO, Food and Agriculture organizations, they don't have any financial streams. They are dependent on the other countries to get financial assistance. So this is, of course, I agree with you. This is another platform is available. The Prime Minister should go through the UN one, but UN is, you know, at present there are 196 countries. So at present, the matter was the financial one. On the financial side, the major decisions are being taken by the G20s. So Prime Minister Imran Khan accordingly appeal to the G20, though appeal is to the everybody, but the major lenders are the G20 ones, including US, Japan, Germany, you name, France, are the other ones. So that was the reason we appealed the G20 to give some relief to the developing countries and the underdeveloped countries. So they came up with the response. So, but unfortunately, we could not get much response from the IMF, World Bank, and ADB to get some debt relief. The reason is IMF, World Bank, and the ADB, they are also dependent on the markets. They have limited resources. How they give money to the borrowers? They have two windows. They have some resources from their own, from the contributions of the member countries, then they borrow money from the market. And this is the way how it works. They borrow money from the market and they add some premium and they lend it to the developing countries. So that was the reason we are exploring all the windows. As you know, at present, Pakistan's total foreign debt is around 111 billion US dollar, out of which $76 billion is the central debt, for which the federal government is responsible to pay. And out of this $76 billion, only $21 billion is bilateral debt. And our major debt is from the ADB and the World Bank. We also approached them to get some debt relief, but due to certain reasons, IMF, World Bank, and the ADB, they are not willing to give us additional, they are not giving us some relief on the existing loans. What, due to the reason that their rating will decrease and their borrowing cost will increase. So in future, their lending will be expensive for the developing countries. So instead, giving us any relief on the existing loans, and of course, they cannot forgive the loans. They cannot give the debt swaps. They cannot convert the loans into the grants because most of their resources are from the private market. They have borrowed money from them. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to give some additional financing as new loans to help the developing countries. So even on this UN side, again, I would say that Prime Minister is going to announce on this World Economic Forum, which is coming on 20th, to create a group of like-minded international agencies, businessmen, business leaders, and the world political leaders to come up together to make a comprehensive strategy to address this challenge of COVID-19. I think it's enough. And if you have any other question, please.
Thank you. Many thanks. I'm my word. The begging, I actually mean the request to collect money. Do we have revised our debt policy in the background of COVID-19?
Well, in terms of policy, as you know, why we borrow. First, you need to look into the why we borrow money from the foreign countries. So at present, our major issue is, as I mentioned, that our central debt is $76 million. And each year, we need to repay more than $10 billion. So on the other side, as we are aware, we have huge current account deficits due to reason like we are having trade deficit. So what we so we are dependent, we need money, I mean to say, we need external assistance. So in order to bridge this gap, we have two reasons. One is current account deficit. The other one is we have to repay the loans. So we need refinancing. From where we can get the refinancing when we have to pay around $10 billion a year but on debt servicing. And on the other side, we have to meet the bridge the gap of current account deficit, which was as high as around $20 billion 2 years back. But now we are we can say that due to the efforts of the governments and the decrease in the oil prices, and due to the government's change in policy again for imports, this gap has been reduced, but still we have a gap. So that is the reason we still need external economic assistance, loans, and we cannot borrow all the money from the domestic market, which has other consequences. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed.
Thank you very much. I would like Dr. Naveed Tahir to please come forward and ask a question. Dr. Naveed Tahir.
Noman, are you listening me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please carry on.
Okay. My question is that we are talking about digital inequality and many inequalities. Do we think that after this crisis, whatever the shape of the depression is, we are going to think about the contractual nature of the employee and the employer and the salary differences, the salary of the median worker and the CEO, such fundamental changes would appear, or the economy would go like as it is going after the crisis? Thank you very much.
इतनी गंदी आवाज है आपकी।
Someone asked somebody to ask a question.
Dr. Mohammed Said, please, if you can answer the question asked by Dr. Naveed, please share your thought.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
If I can intervene, I think there would be fundamental changes in the economic system, in all our system, but that changes would not come abruptly. The system, first of all, we have realized that these are the problems we are facing because of this pandemic, and these are the deficiencies or other problems faced by the system. So after some time, obviously we have to reevaluate and reorient the system, and there would be fundamental changes as well. Not only in one sector of the economy, but in all sectors of the economy. I think so the economic system would change for all sectors of the economy, not abruptly, but with gradually. This is my view.
Thank you very much. I would like Muhammad Yasin Kamar to please ask. He has raised a hand. Please ask a question, and do also share. Do also tell whom you want to ask a question. Muhammad Yasin Kamar.
हेलो, आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी जी जी।
मेरा क्वेश्चन सर सईद से है कि उन्होंने कहा कि G20 में से 11 कंट्रीज हैं जिनसे पाकिस्तान इकोनॉमिकली कनेक्टेड है, तो वो कौन से 11 कंट्रीज हैं और उनसे किस तरह के कनेक्शंस हैं पाकिस्तान के? बस मैं ये जानना चाह रहा था।
जी, मैं आपके साथ डिटेल्स शेयर कर लेता हूँ। जस्ट गिव मी अ मिनट, आई हैव अ लिस्ट। Okay, just a moment, please. Can I share the screen, please?
Let me allow you from this side,
please.
Yes, you can share now.
Okay. Share. So these are the 11 countries from which we are borrowing at the moment. Though in G20 there are some other countries like India and some other countries, but we are not borrowing anything from these countries. So for these G20 countries, for 11 countries, sorry, which are giving us some relief, our bilateral debt is $20 billion for 155 loans, and we have to pay around 1.473 billion principal amount and $323 million as interest rate during the 8 months from May to December 2020. So this is the amount on which G20 has given us a relief. And I will again say, this is not something like a relief. They are not, we have to pay this money, and they will charge interest rate. But the only relief is we will shift the payment from May to December 2020 to the next years. We will pay this amount in the next 3-4 years, along with the additional interest rate. Please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, there is one participant in the chat, Ms. Bushra Rashid. Please come forward and ask a question if you want. Ms. Bushra Rashid. Anyone else, please raise hand.
I have a question.
Yes, please ask Ms. Bushra Rashid. Yes.
Can we look into the green economy as something which can give us a bailout package?
Please also tell whom you want to ask.
Sir, Sai Chaudhary.
Can you please ask your question again. I could not hear you properly.
I have this question. Can we look into the green economy as something which may or can be...
Green, you mean green economy?
Yes, green economy.
Well, this is another area where the government is focusing at the moment. And this is what I mentioned earlier, that we want some debt swap for nature, which is meant for the basically green economy. The government intends to create jobs through green stimulation. So directly and indirectly, as you know, the present government, politically you may disagree with me, but I'm just elaborating the facts that during the last 5 years, the PTA government planted around 1 billion trees in the KP, and which is very successful attempt, and which is being recognized by the international bilaterals and multilateral development partners. So this is not only the plantation, this is not only the environment, this is creating a job, and it has a multiplier effects. Like it provides the, like when we are planting the trees, we are producing the woods, and there are so many allied industries associated with this. Now the government has planned to hire 65,000 people as Nigaban to look after these green areas. And in the future, government intends to hire more people. At present, the government is hiring 65,000 people. So to which the government can provide jobs to the people. And these trees, the next plan is to add like some commercial trees, which are very expensive, which have value for money, which are used for the furniture. And you know, at present, international trade of furniture is more than 30 billion US dollar, but we have almost no share in the international trade of furniture. For furniture, we need the raw material. So if we put our efforts and we synchronize, and what we miss always in Pakistan, we go in the isolation. We make one policy, but we miss the other one. We miss the linkages. If we properly link these green initiatives with the its markets, so we can get more benefits. Similarly, this is one area. The other is in green jobs. Even this renewable energy is the part of the green one. If we build some new dams and we promote other green initiatives, ultimately they are not only going to give job opportunities to the people, they are not only going to give economic benefits to the people, they will give some positive impact on the economy as well. Please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, anyone, if Sir Alladita Saab, please.
Sir, my question is, sir, Assalamu alaikum, sir. But my question is this, that how can we compensate the tax loss or revenue loss in this situation?
Whom you want to ask a question?
The revenue loss.
Revenue loss to whom? The government or the some, I mean, individual businessmen?
Government.
Unfortunately, at present, there is no other option. But you know, already the government's revenues are, I mean, very low, as the people are not willing to pay. During this current financial year 2019-20, we agreed with IMF to generate $5.5 trillion from, 5.5 trillion rupees from the FBR revenues. Later on, this target was revised to 5.1 trillion. Now the situation is entirely different. Everywhere there is a lockdown. So during this year, even for the next year, it is very difficult to get the additional revenues to meet the targets. Yes, we need the revenues. The alternate ways are there, but we need political commitment, strong political commitment, and people's response as well. Because as you know, in Pakistan, only how many people are paying the taxes? Only if we look into the numbers of registered taxpayers, that is around 2.5 million. Out of 2.5 million, again, many are the small ones, the salaried class. So the large taxpayers are very small. So we seriously need the tax reforms in Pakistan. And for that, first step we need is the documentation of the economy. In Pakistan, this is the biggest issue. More than 40% our economy, there are different estimates. So my guess is more than 40% economy is undocumented. So first we should document the economy, then we should bring all the people who are not paying the taxes, individuals as well as the businesses, into the tax net. So this is the only way, and this is the only way for the future of the country. Otherwise, this is the reason we are dependent on the foreigners. We are dependent on the bilaterals and the multilaterals. So unless we go for the tax reforms and we have sufficient resources, we cannot move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This was the session today. I personally thank everyone who attended this webinar, and also thank on behalf of Department of Economics and our host, Dr. Hafizur Rahman. I would like Dr. Hafizur Rahman, please say some closing remarks and then for this webinar. And I would like to say thank you everyone once more time. Dr. Hafiz.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Naman. I really appreciate the time of the students and the audience and the teachers, and particularly, the guest speakers. They have devoted a lot of time. They showed a lot of patience. Because of the connectivity problem, there was sometimes problem, but still, audience have shown, very good gesture. It means this seminar was very much informative and people were taking interest in that one. And I feel, the presenters have spent a lot of time for preparation. And because of that, this webinar seems to be successful. I appreciate all of them. And from the team of economists, I appreciate all the audience and presenters. Thank you very much from my side. Okay, Naman.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to close this in a minute. And do visit our website, and there will be more webinars after Eid.
Thank you, Naman Arshad. Thank you, Sir Hafizur Rahman.
One thing I just want to say, after Eid al-Fitr, inshallah, we will have a series of webinars. We will, invite a lot of other renowned speakers and dignitaries who are really an asset for our country, and their contribution will be quite substantial in the discussion and in helping the government. After Eid al-Fitr, we will have, a series of webinars again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.
Have a happy Eid. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much.